Today I'm going to talk about self-learning strategies and give an example of our own experience here in Benghazi at the Libyan International Medical University. I think to go through my objectives here. First of all, appreciation of the challenge, knowing the concepts of self-directed active learning, to identify the need for change, key international changes in medical education, and trouble-based learning at LIMU. That's our own experience and what we have gained from our experiences. Basically, the world around us is changing so fast. In fact, I have my own experience. In 1991, I was in the United Kingdom. At the time, there were no laptops, no mobile phones, no satellites, nothing at all. Just typewriters as we knew them in the past. By the time I left a few years ago, there was what we have at the moment here, with all the technology that's around us. We're talking about a period of about 15 years. We are part of this world that is changing so fast. We think we should be part of it. We should be activating, we should be contributing rather than being at the receiving end. I'm going to concentrate more on education, and specific medical education, which has changed dramatically over the last few years. I'm basically going to go through a few quotes from some famous educators. I'm going to read this. A great teacher never strives to explain his vision. He simply invites you to stand beside him and see for yourself. There is an old Chinese famous words of saying that the teacher for the student just opens the doors. The students have to go and to walk into that room or out of it sometimes. We think too much about effective methods of teaching and not enough about effective methods of learning. No matter how good teaching may be, each student must take the responsibility for his own education. And we nowadays understand very well the fact that students are the cornerstone in the medical education. They are the active part. They should know what they need, and they should be actively involved in the process of formulating their curriculum and their medical education. The art of teaching is basically the art of showing, assisting, learning, rather than just straightforward teaching. Talking about adult learning. Adult learning is a slightly different category. Adults learn by experience. So adult learners cannot be threatened, cursed, or tricked into learning something new. In fact, the learning experience is basically from their own experiences, and they can work out their needs as a result. Increase or maintaining one's sense of self-esteem and pleasure are strong secondary motivators for engaging in learning experience. So that's why we need self-directed active learning. The learning environment must be physically and psychologically comfortable. So there's no way that we think of the old classes style and expect students specific to learn. The environment should be comfortable physically and psychologically. So what is a self-learning process? It's a process by which the student or the learner uses a number of strategies, multitude of thinking strategies to maximize his or her learning. And this has been an experience that's been gained over the years. I think the call for active learning has been really old, right from the days of Socrates. This is the Chinese saying I've mentioned earlier. The teacher is a midwife to students, is a midwife to students pregnant with ideas. So we do not get ideas out of students. We do not show them what to do. We should show them how to be actively involved in their learning process. I'm going to quickly go through this taxonomy. Bloom is an educational psychologist who led a team a few years ago, talk about 1956, to work out, to promote a new or high level of thinking, talking about instead of just remembering, instead of just recalling, it's more of analyzing, things like formulating, things like understanding. So the concept they were working on is to change the way we teach people, the way we pass informations, the way people learn, from just remembering, recalling informations to being actively involved in a process. This taxonomy has slightly changed a few years ago, but I'm going to go through this very quickly. This is the process by which a learner reaches a stage when he can apply his educational experiences. Each stage must be fulfilled, understood, and mastered by the learner to move to the next one. The first usually is the knowledge. This is basically a recall of the information as we all know it. Once that happens, comes the stage where we start understanding that kind of information, that amount of information. So from recalling it to understanding it. It's a long process, but once that has passed, learners start the next phase, that is applying what they have learned. So moving from the recalling to comprehending it to applying the information they know. The next phase is analyzing the data, and it comes in different forms and shapes, but it's applying what we've learned, analyzing, be able to analyze it in a scientific and logical way. Synthesizing the information is the next phase. What I mean by that is formulating, let's say, a tower, a structure from the informations that are available to the student. So there are pieces of information here and there. The student becomes able to put these informations in one category, build up a structure that's understandable based on his knowledge, based on his ability to understand what's in it, based on his ability to apply that knowledge, and then reaches a stage when he can not just applying it, but synthesizing ideas out of what he learned. Then comes the last phase, which is evaluating what he has learned. Ability to evaluate, ability to work on what has been learned and evaluating it. This is the process by which leading international universities have kind of engaged their students into. We here started this process at the Libya International Medical University, and this is one of the objectives of my talk, is to talk about our experience in applying this taxonomy. Very quickly, this is a very logical structure of how we move one phase to the other, one stage to the other. Being dependent on what the teachers teach us. It's one-way kind of teaching. It's what I'm doing now. And just talking, the audience just listen to what I'm saying. Whether to take it or not, that's a different story. This is passive learning, lecture-based teaching with some note-taking. Stage 2 is making you, audience, learners, more interested in what I am saying. That's the second stage. Making you interested by using kind of different way of what I'm doing just now. It's a straightforward lecture, but if I use more animations, maybe more materials to make you more interested in the subjects, that is the next stage. Then comes taking the lead in the learning process. So instead of just sitting, listening, or maybe be more interested, comes the stage when you are actively involved in that. You will have me not as a teacher, but you'll have me as a facilitator, somebody who will just guide you through your learning process. This is not typically what I'm seeing now. It's more of a small group kind of sessions, talking to names and people and persons rather than audience and crowds. So students identify their learning objectives. So out of what I'm saying, you work out, instead of listing my objectives at the beginning, you will work out what I was trying to pass to you through just facilitating the process. So you come up with the objectives and you go out and work on these objectives, try and fulfill them, search, work on this. Then comes the last stage, which is basically self-directed learning. It's me, I can do it, right? Under certain guidance in a certain way. And this self-directed study, we call it. Think. So why active learning? Why do we need that? Lots of studies show that there is a positive correlation. There is a clear-cut relationship between gains in medical education or education in general and between active learning. So active learning produces more solid results. Students who have little mainstream culture. So why active learning? Let's talk about this. Active learning is engaging yourself in the learning process. It's interacting with the others. It's thinking independently. It's working in a team. It's learning how to lead. It's learning how to accept ideas. It's learning how to cooperate. It's learning how to coordinate. It's a lot there, right? So even if you feel that you're slightly behind your class in a language concept, or maybe in your ability to do whatever, you will not have that kind of feeling if you work with it within a group, because that gives you that kind of assurance, despite your limitations, to be part of a team as a participant in the team. So there's always a feedback. So instructors, facilitators will always give that feedback to the learners about their performance, about their ability, about their leadership skills, about their communication skills, about their learning abilities. So there's always that feedback, and that feedback for an active learner is a very positive reaction to work on that. Instead of just saying it in a lecture hall, you walk out, no idea whether you will be working in it, how to do it, what next step is. So there's always that feedback, either written or verbal, with lots of encouragement, of course. So why active learning again? Let's talk about this. Interactive engagement. So imagine a small group of students working together. I'll show some pictures from our university here. There's that interaction between them in terms of what they are learning at the time, in terms of correcting each other, in terms of searching for the information, in terms of discussing it, in terms for even simple things like being in order when it comes to discussion, hearing the other views, listening to the others, giving your opinion, not being a master of the world if you are a leadership there, because students take turns into leading the groups there. So there's always that kind of interaction. Problem-based learning. This is the cornerstone of the current modern medical education. We don't just give information. It's basically working out on students to solve problems, to problem solve. So this is just a summary of what we talked about. We managed here at LEMO to introduce a new terminology which hasn't been until recently a part of our medical education. I was a medical student at some stage. We talk about brainstorming. We talk about engaging students across tribes. We talk about leads. We talk about problem-based learning. We talk about small group teaching. We talk about community-based education. These are all new terms that students are now aware of. They know what this is all about. And brainstorming is an important session. It's a long session in the medical education there, where students exchange ideas about their ideas. The facilitator is there just to prevent them from going out of the planned session. This is an old class. I don't think we have that nowadays, but just to see how it looked like at some stage, how things have moved very, very quickly from that to what we're doing nowadays. Right, key infrastructure changes. Basic self-directed and problem-based learning, clinical skills teaching. So medical education has become an integrated kind of area, talking about not just the knowledge. When talk about taxonomy earlier on and what Bloom did at the time, the idea was to promote higher level of thinking, and three main categories, and this is what is applicable now in most of the modern medical education schools, talking about knowledge, talking about skills and attitude. These are the three main categories. This is what has been covered by the taxonomy we mentioned earlier. So a school will contain things like small group teaching rooms, a clinical skills lab where students can practice what they have learned, IT technology, IT facilities to facilitate their learning process, and facilitators, and not teachers, not professors, not doctors. It's subject matter experts as their reference for their education. So, just quickly, using clinical skills, communication skills are cornerstones in medical education as well. Clinical skills lab is a lab where students practice their skills, right? It ranges from learning how to react, how to interact, how to talk to people, how to talk to senior people, how to talk to patients, how to break bad news, how to communicate, what's the basic ethical issues that might face a student. Two, practicing simple skills like putting a needle, cannulation, maybe intubation, maybe measure blood pressure, checking blood sugar. These are all done in a skills lab. In a setting that is similar to a hospital, would give the students a feeling of being in a hospital. I'll show you some pictures very soon. So, talk about problem-based learning, just very quickly. I don't want to take long in discussing this, but it's designed to encourage students to learn. And problem-based learning has always been there. The first phrase in Quran, Iqra, is not I'll teach you. It's Iqra, go and do it. Socrates has practiced it. Islam introduced long-term PBL kind of style. يطلبوا العلم ولو في الصين. Go and do it. It's not us that's going to teach you how to do things. So it's always been there. It was first introduced in Canada in McMaster in 1969. So it's been there for a very long time. 1974 in the Netherlands, and we here in Libya we introduced problem-based learning 2009 to all our programs, and this is new. Most universities will have PBL at the medical, maybe faculty of medicine, sometimes in faculty of dentistry, but we have this applicable to all faculties, including medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, basic medical sciences. So this is just an example of what goes on just across the street there. This is a group of students. Each student will have a laptop and an internet connection will be there in case there is a need for an information at the time. Dictionaries will be handy as well. Textbook will be around. A student will take the lead in turn each session. So it's not always the same student who will guide the students towards discussion. He will organize and coordinate between students, and he will discuss things together. There is always what we call a scribe, as a person who will write on a board what has been discussed in terms of maybe objectives, or in terms maybe of strange words, new words to write, to look for, and to try and understand. And it is what we call brainstorming session, where students will start talking. A problem is passed to the students in a piece of paper. They read it, or the leader reads it for them, and then they start working not on solving the problem, but working on the objectives behind that scenario, so they can work on that later on. This is usually followed up by a discussion between the students out of the class. They go and discuss things in groups. They go to the library. They go to the net. They go and talk to people. They ask people just to get the objectives together. The facilitator, who is not in the picture there, because the whole class is in the form of a round table. So there's no senior member of staff. There's no one more important than the others. So the facilitator will have the objectives ready there. So he will just compare what the students will bring back to what he has and encourage them to work more on that if they miss part or some of the objectives. LIMO, and here we have Clinical Skills Center. This is just a corner of that. We have more than that. It's like a medical ward with very advanced mannequins, with lots of simulators, starting from the basic simulator for changes in pulse, to changing in diseases, to lung diseases, to heart diseases, to cannulations, to doing procedures, to intubations, lots of procedures. And the students will work in small groups there under supervision of young doctors. And this center provides students with ideas set into practice what they have learned at the time. So they don't go into the hospital before they become aware of what is what's there. So this is another set of pictures. This is a skills lab, another corner of that. 2 students practicing what they're learning. Basic skills like CPR or advanced CPR for pediatrics and adults, intubations, all that is taught right from the start. There's no point waiting until they reach what we call clinical phase. It's right from year 1. So we have a medical education unit that supervises the work at the university as a reference, supervises the curriculum. There is a curriculum development committee in each of the faculties, and we go back to the medical education unit for supervision, for follow-up, for development, and for changes. We have quality assurance office, and as everybody does, we hate that. They're always on your back there asking for things and asking for papers, asking for forms. It's hard work, and but they're doing a good job there. They come up with, we have questionnaires for the students on the curriculum, teachers on students, students on teachers, teachers on exams, students on exams. We use these questionnaires to evaluate the strategy at the university. We use these questionnaires to give feedback to the students and the teachers as well. Teachers decide who should teach them. We use what we call model, and that's a modular objective-oriented dynamic learning environment. This is a software or a site where students have their password. Each student will have a password. They interact with each other. They interact with their teachers. They have their exams, their results, the announcements. They have mock exams there, and they ask the questions. They write their essays. They present their essays on this website, and they get feedback from their teachers, from facilitators, from everyone at the time. So this is a very active part of our environment there. We have, this is a different thing. We are a member of that, but we have 2 big lecture halls, but the rest of the university is more of small rooms for small group teaching. And we have a big library, extra library with e-books available as well as the normal books. This is a lab, a computer lab where students work on what they have learned, but it's becoming a must that every student must have a laptop there. Internet connection is available throughout the university there to facilitate the learning process. This is a picture where the students is in a brainstorming session. The student standing there is a scribe writing on the board. That's the leader, and there is a group there. And our students gather at the end of the day in another session after brainstorming session in a seminar to discuss what they have learned, to present their objectives, to discuss that in the presence of subject matter experts. We may have the same setting, a physiologist, a pathologist, biochemist, and a clinician, maybe, depending on the scenario that has been given to the students. We also teach students how to present their work, so presentation skills is an important part of our education process, and these are the labs where students use models and mannequins for the learning process. So a good part of their education process is doing rather than just sitting and listening. These are also labs there. There's encouragement for the students to do some research, and we have some research papers published already in some international journals by students. So research methodology, encouraging students to do some research is mandatory here. This is a library here, and we have a very good dental clinic in the university where students learn what to do. It's a learning process right from the first years in the dental school. We have 2 big clinics there under the close supervision of the senior staff. Students prior to reaching this stage, they have lots of work to do in the labs in the dental school, so it's a state-of-the-art clinic, and they have some visits from different people, some time more Harvard University. And finally, I just want to say that our students must be ready for the future, and Libya can make it. I think it's not difficult. I think there's always a way to do it. I think we may not be ideal there. We tried, we're still trying. I think we can do better. I think the environment is not, at the moment at least, is not helping much, but I think once things improve, things will get better. We would like to pass the message to everybody else around us. We are very happy to collaborate and cooperate with any university. We learn and they learn, rather than they teach us, we teach them. We learn from each other. The idea is for Libya to be in the middle of the quick change that is happening nowadays. So thank you very much.